Hello everyone, it is Renee and we are finally doing the recording for my greed accessory video. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, the first thing we're working on is the nails. The first attempt, atrocious, basic. All I did was use some foil metallic gold spray paint, covered the nails in that, and then added some rhinestones, called it a day. Was not enough for me. Second attempt, I painted over the gold with white acrylic paint, and then I used some gold leaf on top of that to almost make it look like it was marbled. I also put some gold leaf on the bottom tips of the nails just in case when I was filming you flipped it over and you wouldn't see just white polish. Cuter, still was not enough for me. Then the third attempt came after a long break, and I mean a long break. My friend Tiana, hi Tiana, if you're watching this, thank you again for giving me these nails. She had some nails that she wasn't using, and they were some claws. They're like at least 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, and these were perfect. I used some silver holographic paint, and I mixed up some gold glitter with some clear gel top coat, and I painted that on the nails so that way they would be opaque from the bottom. It was very satisfying to see that when I flipped over my nails in the camera and whatnot. It was really pretty. And I covered that in white gel polish. Could have used the white acrylic paint. Didn't think about it at the time, but that's okay. Still came out really nice. And then after that, it was time to decorate even more. For this iteration of Greed, I had it in mind that you would hear them coming all the time because they were just so dripped out in different gold and silver chains and necklaces and all kinds of stuff. So all the stuff that I had from the craft store and just other different gold and silver things that I had, I just started attaching them to the nails. Some of them are attached to the same nails. Some chains go between different fingers or whatnot. But it's okay because it's Greed, and Greed doesn't have to really lift a finger to do anything, so it doesn't matter if their fingers get tangled up or whatnot. You just need to see how shiny they are, basically. I also added some gold and silver leaf to these. I didn't make them opaque. I just wanted you to be able to see still the white base through them, but and I forgot what I was gonna say, but I also added some nail charms that had like diamonds in them. Of course, I cannot speak right now. Of course, I added some rhinestones as well. I just made them look really extra and chunky and almost gaudy. But again, that's kind of what I feel like Greed would do, at least in this form anyway. And look at them. They came out so nice. I'm so proud. Oh, and they're so shiny. 10 out of 10, 12 out of 10. Double chef kiss. All right, next up, the horns. These were some Maleficent horns that I had for a while and knew I wanted to use them for something, and this came up and it was perfect because it meant I didn't have to make any horns. But they were hollow, so I used some fence post foam to stiffen them up. If you do this, be careful. One, just making sure that you actually read the instructions, because this is not what this is made for, even though it is pretty much just like any other 2-part expanding foam. So just know what measurements you're going to be doing, and also just make sure you are in a well ventilated area. I was in front of one open window. I had a mask on, and my other window was pulling the air out because I had a fan facing the opposite way. But it was a really simple mix. I just measured out how much I would need, mixed it in one cup, poured it into another cup, and then put it into the horns, let it expand for a few hours, and then it was solid enough for me to cut off the excess. And then I let them sit for like a day. And then after that, it was time for me to go ahead and decorate them, it was fun. It's always fun. So first I started off with making the base of the horns because they weren't going to be covered at the base. They were just going to appear as if they were coming right out of my head. So I used some white foam clay, and I used some sculpting tools and some water in my fingers to just make it look kind of organic. I also put some of the clay at the tips of the horn because I wanted it to look like they had been dipped in molten gold, because again, this is Greed and they're very extra. It's a very satisfying process. And I also used my wig head to do this. I happen to have a wig form that is the same size as my head, and this just helped with getting the curvature at the base of the horn, because they're not going to be it's going to look weird if they're just sitting up there. They have to fit my head properly, fit the curve of my head. You could also just use like a styrofoam head just to get a curve basically, but it helped a lot, just the fact that I had a wig head that was the same size as my head, because I have a melon, okay? So I have a noggin, all right? But same as with the expanding foam, you have to let it cure or set before you actually can start like painting it and whatnot. At least I'm pretty sure you do. And I think I let that sit for like a day or two before I did start painting it, which was even funner. Is that a word? Probably not. Anyway, I am showing 2 cans of spray paint, but I only used 1. I used the silver spray paint, the silver foil spray paint on the middle part of the horn, so like where it originally looks like Maleficent's horns. And then I just painted over the overspray on the base of the horn with white acrylic paint. And then instead of using gold spray paint, I used gold leaf on the very tip of the horn to get that molten gold effect, because it's almost it's textured a bit, so that fit. I also ended up spreading the gold leaf onto the white base of the horn, as well as using some silver leaf, and I rubbed that in and it came out really nice actually. It almost looks like it was naturally integrated into the horn, which kind of also works too, because I feel like greed probably sometimes whatever they can, if they ingest it, it just becomes a part of their body, or sometimes they just like smush stuff into their body and then that's what it looks like. Now to add more dangly bits. First, for the horns, I wanted something to hang between them in the back of the horns. So I had this string of gold and silver glass beads, and they were really pretty. And I had these 2 gold mirrors. They're like 2 tiny circular gold mirrors, because I wanted it to be easy to remove and take off. So I added some neodymium magnets onto the backs of the mirrors, and I made sure I had the string of beads between that, mixed in some epoxy, and then I measured out the distance between the horns, and I used acrylic paint to mark where the other magnet should sit before just going in willy-nilly. And I used the tip of my hot gun to make a little hole in the back where I could put the matching magnet. Anytime you're using magnets, make sure you check the polarities. Make sure you put the right polarities where they're supposed to go. I did, fortunately, and it worked out really nicely. Now I can detach this whenever I feel like it. And I think finally I just started adding rhinestones and other little charms, as well as more chains and dangly bits and shiny bits, because again, this is greed and they have to be as extra as possible. And I feel like sometimes they just walk around, anytime they see something, they just pick it up, wrap it on a horn or something, and it came out really nicely. It's not symmetrical. I wanted it to look again like it was just haphazardly, just like ooh, shiny, and then just tossed up there, and it was super pretty. And it's very satisfying hearing some of the little things twinkle and tingle against each other. I don't know if that's a proper term, but it was very nice. And also I like looking at it in the light because it's very shiny. Yeah, makes my crow brain very happy. All right, so next up, the mask. Originally it was going to be a veil, but it just was not working out the way I wanted it to. I like the whole idea of kind of one of the themes being, or like a hint of it going towards blinded by greed, and I was going to stick with that, but the veil just wasn't giving what I needed it to give. So I took a break, as I often do, and I came back and I decided I wanted to do a filigree mask. I've never seen a tutorial on how to make them. I always see where to buy them and they always look really pretty, but I was going to figure it out myself because I'm a Virgo and that's what we do. So on my face cast, I used some masking tape and I just plotted out a general area that I could taper down when I did start designing it. I just wanted plenty of workaround room so that way I could whittle down the base shape basically. I think I used a pencil first to trace out half of the shape of the mask. And then I went over that with a permanent marker, and I added registration marks. I forgot why. I think I was going to go a different way of making it, but I ended up just doing this. And I also traced out my eye shape, and I carefully used my box cutter to go ahead and cut that out. And then I went in with my Warbler. It was just a small section of Warbler. This is going to be the base of the mask, what we attach everything to. And I used a heat gun to just warm it up enough so that I could start pushing it into the shape of my face. And then once it was pretty well mapped out, I used the tape pattern to go ahead and cut out the shape of the base. Don't know where that footage went, but I did it. I also went ahead and cut out the eye holes. I cut out the eye holes a little bit smaller than what they were, so that way I could just bend over like the flaps, so that way there wasn't like a scratchy edge near my eye. I did paint this, and I put gold leaf on it and silver leaf. Don't remember why. I think I was just gonna go a different way about making it, but then I decided to do I decided to do the whole mask in filigree. I got these little filigree connectors. They're like 10 in a pack, I think, or 8 in a pack. And they're really pretty, except they were the wrong shade of gold. So I had to go through and gold leaf all of these. I did it kind of like assembly line style, or like group assembly line style, I guess. So I went through, painted all of them with the size, and by the time I reached the last one, the size had already gotten tacky on the first one, so then I just started rubbing the gold leaf all over them. It was time consuming, but would I do it again? Yes, because I know how well it turned out. Once they were all dried and whatnot, I did go in with kind of a stiff brush and brush out all the excess gold leaf, just so you could also see the little holes and divots in the filigree pieces. And then I think I just started attaching them, and I just used some hot glue to do that because it was thick enough to where I could kind of like push the different edges of the filigree into the hot glue, and then they stayed there. These filigree pieces were also pretty malleable, so I could bend them. I could also cut them to different shapes, which was really nice. And I also had another pack of filigree that were different shapes. They were like corner pieces, and I was able to use some of those to make like eyebrow ridges. And there was also a particular piece that was kind of in the shape of an eye, so I put that over the eye holes. I could still see out of them, but it just looked really cool visually. To add some extra pizzazz, I went over the mask once it was all done with like drips of hot glue, and I used gold and silver leaf to make those look like molten gold, again just to tie everything together. I added a chain that hung off the sides of the mask at the bottom, just kind of framed my face so that way there was a little bit of extra interest. And I also of course added rhinestones, because you gotta have them, basically. You gotta have them through the whole look, in all honesty. But yeah, it's done, and I'm pretty sure out of the whole thing, this was my favorite piece. And I kind of want to make a mask for all the rest of the sins too. Don't know if it'll be all filigree like this, but it's definitely something to consider because it came out so well. So I'm pretty sure earlier I mentioned that at some point I wanted it to look like greed, sometimes either ingested or embedded certain shiny things onto their skin, and then they just became a part of their body. So I'm making some kind of like mounds with some white foam clay. I would probably, if I did something like this again, I'd probably do them on my body just to get the shape, because they were flat on the bottom, so they didn't stick to me very well. But I made some mounds, and I also made some different like geode shapes and like some different filigree pieces that I put in some molds. A tip to get some of these out without disturbing the shape is if you put them in the freezer for a few seconds. Minutes. I meant minutes. My bad. And then you can just pop them out. That way you don't have to fight with them or possibly break them. But I did that so that way I could just have a bunch of different textures and whatnot. Oh, excuse me. And I used gold and silver leaf, as well as some rhinestones and some extra jewelry bits just some like fake jewelry and stuff that I had that I could piece apart to kind of just embed them into these lumps and bumps and whatnot. And I ended up kind of making almost a chest piece because my original idea didn't work out, but I was still happy with it. It came out really cool. All right, and lastly, the ears. I stockpile all different Halloween stuff, honestly, so I don't remember where exactly I got these from. Probably Spirit Halloween or another Halloween store that was in my area. I'm going to spread some white cream paint over them, and I'm going to spread it out with a brush. And once I have general coverage, I'm going to go over it with a beauty blender just to kind of mesh everything together and make sure it's all opaque, but also take away some of that cream shine. And I'm also going to set that with a white powder. Oh my goodness, yes ma'am. What's wrong? And I'm just pushing that into the cream makeup, and once I'm happy with that and it's all set, I'm going to add some shadow back with a gray eyeshadow. I think I used, it was either a gray or black eyeshadow, and you can tell the difference there. Just I just put it in the recesses just to bring back some of the contours and the shape of the ears. Originally I was going to use this like powder metallic paint, but it dried to a weird finish, so gold leaf and silver leaf to the rescue. I applied the size, let it get tacky, and then I just rubbed the silver and gold leaf over different ridges and areas of the ear because it picked up the shine I wanted, and it also gave this kind of like almost ombre effect from the gold to the silver, which I really liked. And then after that, I sprayed it with a setting spray, and once it was all dried, I just started adding accessories. I have a bunch of different ear cuffs, a bunch of different ear jewelry, and I just started putting them along the ears, basically. If you do something like this, just make sure you don't put them too far down the ears, depending on the size of your ear. I have pretty small ears, so I could go pretty far down, and I had no trouble slipping these onto my ear. And yeah, that's the gist of it. Oh, also, if you need to, you can also just like do some hot glue chains or whatever. I have a lot of silver ear jewelry, which is strange, but I also just added different shiny bits or whatnot with hot glue. And that's the ear. And this is the preview of the next video, which is the full special effect version of Greed. I hope you stick around to watch it and tell me what look in the series you would like to see next. Yeah, I guess I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.